Hello, everybody. Welcome to the HR Roundtable. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited to have Jen Coken with us. We're going to be talking about one-on-ones that work, the coaching strategy HR can't ignore. Absolutely an area that I think all of us are we spend a lot of time dealing with coaching on a daily basis. And I think that there are always new ways we can be looking at things. So we're really excited to hear what resources and ideas that Jen has for us today. She's an executive coach, a comedian, and truth teller for powerhouse women in male-dominated industries. She's coached thousands of leaders, from senior execs to scrappy startup founders, to lead with more authenticity, clarity, and no damn apology. With 25 plus years navigating political backgrounds and corporate power plays, Jen's work blends soul strategy and sharp insight to help women reclaim their voice and rewrite the rules. She's the author of Make Imposter Syndrome Your Superpower and the creator of the Legacy Leadership Framework. Clients call her the Velvet Sledgehammer for a reason. She tells the truth with love and gets results that last. Jen, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, PJ, for that beautiful introduction and also for having me. And thanks to everybody for joining today. I was saying to PJ before we began, I have so much to say about one-on-ones that I want to make sure that I stick with the points because we could spend a half day or a day with this when I go into organizations and work on culture and do half day, full day retreats, that kind of thing. This is one of the key pieces. So before we did anything else, I wanted to let you know that I read everybody's answers. And thank you so much for those of you that filled in the answers to what do you think the biggest blockers were and how often you meet. So a bunch of you basically said the same thing in different ways. My one-on-ones keep turning into task updates. A lot of you said time, like finding the time, prepping takes forever, documenting, follow up, and that's true. But time is also, I feel like, something we say when we aren't clear about the purpose of the meeting or confident about what's the end, what's our intention in having our one-on-one meeting. And then there were those of you that were super brave and admitted like the hardest part about one-on-ones, as it is for most of us, is giving critical feedback with empathy, especially when somebody gets defensive. By the way, next week, right, PJ, next week, I'm going to be leading a session on giving critical feedback, how to have tough conversations that actually transform relationships. Those are nuances all into themselves. We also have a huge swath of different kinds of people on the call, those of you that work in companies that have 10 employees to 10,000. And for the most part, about three-quarters of you, you're saying, yes, people are having their one-on-ones, if not weekly, bi-weekly. That in and of itself speaks volumes. People are wanting to have them, but your job as an HR manager, we're tasked with, or an HR director or CHRO, of getting other people to do something they may not want to do. If any of us have kids, we know what that's like and how that goes a lot of times. Okay. So, by the way, I'm also a recovering stand-up comedian, so we're going to have a little fun, and I'm hoping to make you laugh through the course of this next hour. I'm going to ask PJ to monitor the chat. I'm also going to leave 10 minutes at the end to take questions. Yeah, buts, how about? So I wanted to make sure you knew that. And I'll also have a way to give you a handout that's going to outline the 5 questions and give you a strategy to deploy this come tomorrow if that's what you want to do. Now, before I get into the 5 questions, I want to tell you where it came from. I, for a year, was coaching a group of high performers from a major tech company and traveling around the world, meeting with them in a group situation, coaching one-on-one. And I had one of the guys come to the call and say to me, he's a sales leader in the UK. He said, Jen, I'm doing my one-on-ones, but what are they for? And I was thinking to myself, thank God somebody finally asked. Because I think we fall into doing one-on-ones because we think we know we should. Um, we the people who our managers did it with us, and so we do the same thing our managers did with us, but we haven't actually done the thinking of, well, what is the point of this? And so that's what he and I drilled into and where the 5 question framework came from. You don't build trust just by having people show up. We know this, right? From obligation. You build it from intention. And here's why these questions matter so much. And why his question mattered so much is because he was coming from curiosity and not conclusion. And often our mindset, the framework, the context with which we are viewing the one-on-ones is getting answers and coming to conclusion and filling KPIs and task updates so we can run that information up the chain, or the people that you're trying to get to do these one-on-ones. We're not coming from a coaching mindset, a curious mindset. And that's really what we want to be doing, because we all know the one-on-ones aren't for us. They're for the people who are coming to the one-on-one. So curiosity, help me understand what's happening, what you've tried, what you need. That one mindset shift changes everything. And most managers are not avoiding one-on-ones because they're bad managers. They're busy. And no one ever taught them what they were for, truly. Like I said, they're emulating what the person did with them previously. The workplace has changed. It's harder to do these kinds of one-on-ones when we're not in person anymore. How do we distinguish the nuances over Zoom? Somebody's not on camera because we don't require people to be. It's difficult to tease out or know, how is this person reacting to the feedback I'm giving or to the information. And when managers don't feel confident having performance conversations, they hide it in task updates because that feels safer. They hide it in the KPIs. So in this hour, I'm going to give you a tool that I think is deceptively simple. It may not be easy, but it's simple. And I need you to hear me. It's not just a throwaway set of questions, a cute set of questions. This is something I implement with every single organization, every single person I coach. And those that take me up on it see amazing results. So if you're HR attempting to teach managers how to operate as a coach and not as the authority figure, a good one-on-one is not the place to be right about something. It's the place to be curious. So PJ, let's do that first poll. Just curious, what do you think? What would your people say? Either what's your biggest blocker? What would your people say is the biggest blocker to you having consistent one-on-one meetings? Oh, that's the how effective. You know what?
I'm so
We
sorry.
can, that's totally fine. Let's go with it. It's all right. We'll come back to it. Do we have which one is that question? Do you know, in the one that you
Yeah,
just
it's
went?
on scale from 1 to 5. How effective are your current one-on-ones?
No, I see this. Where's the block, the time block one? Do you see, is it? But you have to deploy each polling question, right?
Yep.
That's all right. Let's see. Scale 1 to 5, how effective your current one-on-ones? Everybody's kind of in the middle. We only have 9 people answering, so if everybody can answer, that'd be great. We got about 30 seconds left. Still need 9 people to answer. Everybody's kind of in the middle.
And
Got
I've
one
launched.
person saying awesome. Got about 7 people you can still answer. About 7 people haven't answered. Let's just go with this. So right in the middle, square in the middle, average. That's okay. I think everybody could be committed to. There you go.
There we go.
There we go. All right. I think probably everybody can be committed to being a 5, right? Don't we all want to be 5s? I don't know. I'm an overachiever. So,
All right, let me
um,
launch the proper one now. The blocking, the biggest blocker.
okay, perfect.
There we go.
Then we don't have to do the, I'm just going to make a note that we did the other one and what it was, average. Okay. Of course, the one pen I pick up doesn't say time. Yep. Got it.
Wow, time
Um,
is just,
yeah. Well, it does. It feels like, well, we got all these other fires to put out,
yep.
right? And I think if anybody's ever witnessed or seen, the Eisenhower matrix, the urgent versus important, which I hate that matrix, by the way. I think it's much more effective to ask what's the number one thing you can do for impact today, period, full stop. But that looks at the urgency versus important, that place that's important but not urgent. Those are the things we don't take time for, the staring out the window, the one-on-ones. So everybody, 70% of you said time was the biggest blocker. And somebody put other. Did you stick it in the Zoom chat? What's the other that you named? Let me look. Doop-a-doo. Somebody named other, no issues with one-on-one meetings. Got you. Great. Terrific. Okay. So biggest one is time. So whatever you chose, it doesn't mean that you or your managers don't care. Usually means you're operating inside a culture or there is a culture some way, shape, or form that one-on-ones is optional or nice to have. And the other thing to think about is this. No matter who you're meeting with, whether you're meeting with your boss or the people you report to are meeting with you or the man, whoever they're meeting with, what's being triggered in that moment is people's relationship to authority. So it doesn't matter how great of a relationship you have, they're automatically with subconsciously putting you in a position of mom or teacher or dad or some position of authority. So these questions that I'm about to give you are going to break through that subconscious mindset that could result in the automatic defensiveness. So, and the other piece is when it's time, people move to the task focus, and that's the KPI focus. But we all know one-on-ones are not for managing KPIs. Give people a dashboard. How many times have people said, I didn't, you're in a one-on-one, they're giving you updates that could have been given to you via email or that could have been given to the manager via email. We want these one-on-ones to be meaningful, to be outcome oriented. So build a dashboard if people want KPIs. That's what's key. And that's something to ask your folks. Are you just getting status updates, project updates, Asana, Monday, whatever, Trello, whatever project management software you're using? Tell them to start using that instead of these one-on-ones. These one-on-ones are your number one tool to increase employee engagement, increase retention, ready your leaders to take on additional responsibilities and roles, but only if they're related to as a coaching framework. They're for your people, period, full stop. All right. So the next question that we had asked was the how effective, and it was kind of in the middle, right? When people answered, they were sort of effective. So now that we're looking at effectiveness and time, one of my clients came to me and told me that one of her employees came to her and asked for a day off for her husband's funeral. And that stuck with me because and that employee never asked for a day off. I asked the client, did you know the husband was sick? She was like, no, I didn't know any of it. Now, one could argue folks don't want to talk about private stuff at work. Got it. I really distinguish between private and personal. I have to give private details, but personally, my dad's going through something and I may need to take some time off. Whatever it was in the way she was relating to that person that was reporting to her in those one-on-one conversations, she hadn't created the safe space. She hadn't created the opportunity for her employee to be vulnerable, to share what was actually going on with her. And she was shocked that she didn't know about it. And the employee didn't hide it because she was being dramatic. She hid it. She told me that, told the manager because, told my client, because she just didn't feel safe enough to say it in an office setting. And when we're in these hybrid environments, it makes it even less safe because, again, we're not connected to people's body language, their energy, being able to interact with them in person. So let's launch that final poll question of, do you feel confident in your ability to coach and not just manage the people you're meeting with one-on-one? And if answer for both you, but also answer for the people in your organization if you feel like that's the better framework to come from. So you do feel confident. Okay, good. This is a yes, no, right? Oh, you're on mute, PJ.
Sorry, we'll be able to see in a minute. We actually asked them to answer, to give us an answer.
Oh, perfect. Good. All right, let's see. And you'll be able to pull up the poll so we can see
Yep.
the answers, right? Perfect.
Yep. I'm going to share it in just a minute. We've got 20 of 32 that have responded, about
Okay.
65%.
I wonder if I'm sharing my screen, can I see your screen?
Yep, because I'm going to give it another few seconds. I'm going to end the poll and I'll share it, and everybody should be able to see it.
Okay.
Hopefully you should be able to
I
too.
know that's what I'm wondering because I have all my little screens pulled up and you guys pulled up and
Okay. Apologies. This is the first time I've done a long answer.
if we can't figure it out, we could also have people put it in the chat if we want.
Yep. How about this? Why don't you keep going? I will figure it out and I'll drop the responses in the chat. How's that?
Perfect. 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 All righty. Oop. Okay, so what I want to go over now is simply what I call the presence framework, since one of my specialties is executive presence. Now, these are the 5 questions that I built with the leader in the UK. Well, we built 4 of them, and then another client and I added one. She added one that I thought was flippin' brilliant. I'm going to go over the 5 questions, then I'll go over the structure and how I put these together. First question is simply asking, and by the way, you're asking people to answer these 48 hours ahead of your one-on-one meeting. You are not preparing the meeting, they are. And in the packet of information I'm going to give you at the end, it has a sample email you can send to your employees along with a sample Google Doc. I don't know if you use Google or Slack or Microsoft Teams, whatever it is. So you can build a living document for your weekly one-on-ones. You could put it in a Google Doc in Google Sheets. The point is so that you every month, every quarter can go back through and go, oh, like what are the trends here? Or you as HR can look and say, perhaps it's something that you put together and you have it sorted if you have a larger company by, by vertical and then by manager. So you can be going through use Chat GPT. I will tell you, I took everybody's answers within 20 seconds. Chat let me know that 74% of everybody meets weekly or bi-weekly, much easier than me attempting to use paper and a pencil and go old school. So we want to keep track of these questions because then your performance review doesn't feel like a sprint at the end of the year or the end of the 6-month period, whenever you do it you actually already know what the issues have been. And it's not just that you know them, the employee is coming to you and naming those issues. And this is probably the toughest part about these questions is empowering and giving your employees. I'm gonna speak to it this way because it's easier because I know some of you are not just managing direct reports, but you're managing the managers who are managing the direct reports. So I'm just going to relate to you as the person managing a direct report because otherwise my little brain is going to go haywire attempting to make sure that I'm saying all the right words. When you're using these questions, the key is to train and coach people and give them agency to be truthful. The very first question, everyone's like, where is it? Where is it? Number 1, we're building momentum. What's going well? Now, why this question? Because you are intervening when the brain's negativity bias. How many of you, and I just want to, you can put it in your chat and say me, how many of you start your one-on-ones and the first thing people do is verbally vomit? And then all of a sudden the entire meeting's gone. Anyone? Or the first 5 minutes, it's all about verbally vomiting. And you don't know what to do. You're like, I'm supposed to give them time to talk. What do I do now? I'll give you a little side note. Go to the dollar store, buy a bucket, take a Sharpie, write on their verbal vomit bucket. Get a stopwatch or use your phone, start training people. Okay, you can verbally vomit. You have 5 minutes. Here's the bucket. Boom. You're going to hold the bucket and verbally vomit all the stuff into there. You get 5 minutes, set the timer, and at 5 minutes, they're done. That's it. They don't get to verbally vomit anymore because the point of these conversations is giving them agency and empowering them to solve their own problems and to review their own performance. When you're asking them what's going well, you're interrupting the brain's negativity bias. They have given you this answer 48 hours beforehand, so you can look at it and go, why on earth would they think that's going well? That is not going well. Or they think that's going well, amazing, but there's so many other things that are going well. Why didn't they name those? So you're able to start training their brain to recognize success and the way in which you define success. The second question, you're naming the friction. What isn't going as well as you'd like it to? Now, notice I didn't say what's wrong. Once again, this question is phrased to intervene with the brain's negativity bias. The average person has 60,000 thoughts a day, and 85% are negative. 95% are repetitive. So, and again, remember I talked about how we're also intervening with people's relationship to authority, asking these questions. You're asking them to review themselves, and walking in, they've already said the hard stuff. And you've taken time to be thoughtful about your responses. And in the sample email that I'm going to give you, it specifically uses that phrase. Make sure you use that phrase. I'd like you to answer these questions 48 hours ahead of time so I can be thoughtful about our time together. So that doesn't become a them problem. It's how can I help me to help you? It's the famous Jerry Maguire quote. So, what isn't going as well as you'd like it to? Here's what my brilliant client in Wisconsin added. What have you done to try to solve it? What have they done to attempt to solve this? And by the way, going back to what isn't going as well as you'd like it to, this is a great time for you to intervene also and say, I don't know why you don't think that's going well. That's going really well. Here's the feedback I've gotten. This also allows you those first two questions, what's going well, what isn't going as well as you'd like it to, allows you to better understand their problem solving perspective. How are they approaching this? So, what have you tried? Well, I haven't tried anything. Well, why not? That's interesting. I'm curious. I'm curious. Curiosity over conclusion. Always start with I'm curious because that also intervenes with your are you kidding me? You haven't tried anything to solve it and you've waited this long to tell me, which could from time to time rear its ugly head. So you're inviting them to partner with you. They're being increasing their critical thinking and also their ownership and their own accountability over those solutions. These are critical. The final two questions. Do you have any questions for me? Just any questions at all? Any questions you need to get your job done? And finally, are there any additional resources you need? Now, don't worry about people wanting, I need more people. Those are the resources I need. I need you to hire somebody else. Well, guess what? We can't. So maybe what they would like is they need an online training that you have in the company database. There's tons of free training out in fill in the blank. And that would help them with time management. That would help them with project management. That would help them with fill in the blank. So of course we don't want to, we want to manage expectations and not have people think, well, if I put on here, here's the additional resources I need, you will give them to me. I'm curious, why do you think those are the right resources you need to get the job done? Tell me more about that. What's your thinking? Tell me more. Do you have any questions for me? Nope. Well, I'm curious. How come? Really? No questions? That begins to allow you to see, are they just trying to be a good doobie and give you the right answer so they don't want to question anything? See, this is all relates to people's relationship to authority. We have to think about this because we don't know what it is. We're not going to intervene with that relationship. However, it makes a big difference to understand and come from and have the empathy to know that I've got it. PJ's got it. We've all got it. Doesn't matter who you're walking in to have a meeting. I don't care if you're the CEO, the board member calls you. You got time to talk? Yeah. I mean, there's always that like that tension for a minute. Now, when people know these questions are coming every week, they start running the meetings themselves. They no longer are looking to you to run these meetings because you're getting the information you need and you're beginning to develop a power source relationship. You're feeding them power, they're feeding you power. So I want to flow back to these questions and kind of open it up to see what people have to say about these, what is coming up for you, who has a question, a yeah, but, or needs real-time coaching for a situation that you're currently dealing with.
And Jen, I just went ahead and put the responses that we received to the question, do you feel confident in your ability to coach, not just manage your team? There was a little word cloud that came up, but then there's also the other questions that were individual that I went ahead and put up as well.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you. So, questions about this, thoughts, situations. This is the part where you guys talk, where you guys say, just
Hi, I have a question.
yes,
Thank you
Sarah.
so
Hi. Thank you for being brave. You're our first
I'm brave.
contestant on The Price is
Oh,
Right.
I
People
love
love
asking
that show.
questions. Um, so for this, I think these are great and you would recommend this for a weekly one-on-one. I'm wondering, like, I know you mentioned like Asana, Monday.com, etc., for doing like project management and keeping up on that. Um, but if you don't have those tools and that one-on-one really is like a task checklist. Have you ever coached people who have maybe done this every other week or like
Yeah.
what's sort of the cadence of these meetings? Because this feels more like I'm doing a quarterly review or something.
Right. And with this, so thank you for asking that question. A couple of things. Your one-on-one should be the same time every week. If you can't do it every week, bi-weekly, right? And they never get canceled. They never get canceled. They never get moved unless there is an emergency where someone's actually hearing sirens. Do they get moved? Because you're never going to not have something to talk about. So you have the project updates. You just got the project updates. If you're doing Monday morning stand-in, stand-ups, you're getting all your project updates. But yeah, what you said, I would adjust for how your office runs. So if you do need those project updates, but this I would do every other week, at least once a month. Don't wait for the quarterly review because the key here is people forget. They're not going to remember. Maybe you don't even cover this every week, but they fill it out every week. That's part of what you're asking them to do. So you can take a look at it because in our one-on-one, we've got to troubleshoot an issue that we've been having with fill in the blank. And that's what we need to spend our one-on-one on. I do feel very strongly about ensuring that your people are answering this week to week and that you're covering it with them at a minimum once a month, best every other week. If you can do it every week because you do have those dashboards, terrific. And I also suggest this because many managers I know, and I'm not saying you're one or anyone on this call is, default to just doing task updates because they don't know how to coach people. And they know how to coach, but they're scared of doing it. They don't feel confident. So is that helpful?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, that is, and I think that's probably true. Yeah, you're afraid once you ask one of those questions what the response might be, and are
Yeah.
you ready with something else? But I think the 48 hours ahead of time is great advice.
And that is key too, Sarah. Thank you for saying that because, and we'll talk about this next week in the critical conversations. When, first of all, nobody likes to be surprised. Well, I guess some people like surprise parties and things like that, but nobody likes to be caught off guard. I walk into my one-on-one where we've been doing these status updates. I'm like, so what's going well? I drank my water today before I
Mhm.
came. I've had 3 glasses of water. You know what I mean? So doing the 48 hours in advance allows people to put that thought into what they are, what they are, how they are answering, as well as you being thoughtful about your answers. So I think that's part of it as well.
Great.
Awesome, Sarah. Thank you. Javier, good to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you. I really think this is great. And, I came from the world of doing like monthly one-on-one check-ins, which are great. And I love this because it allows us to really focus and get down to what needs to happen. I think there's another benefit to this is, at the end of the performance cycle, you could kind of use these to guide your evaluation of yourself, at the end. And then if you have a good performance system as the leader, this could help you kind of like check back into like, oh, how am I going to assess them at the end of the year? What is success going to look like? And are they telling me what, could impede that success during these one-on-ones? So I think this is a really great framework to work from.
Yeah, thank you so much, Javier. And I also think this also gives you a great opening for individual development plans so that you can see what some of those patterns are. And I love that you talked about it. You can also assess your own performance as a manager. If you're seeing a consistent behavior, start with you, right? You point at somebody else. What did our grandparents say? Three fingers are pointing back at me. Look at yourself first to see, have I given them enough training? Maybe you're collaborating with another department and there's somebody who's kind of persnickety and you haven't had a conversation with your direct report of how do I interact with this person who is automatically defensive without putting myself in a defensive position and opening up the space. So I think there's a lot of nuances to this with the performance reviews, with the individual development plans, and also the timing of it to, performance reviews, quarterly, yearly, whatever it is. I don't know about you, but for the most part, when I would have to go back doing my own self-assessment with those, I half the time had to go back through my calendar to figure out what was I doing over the course of the year. And I never kept my KPIs in front of me. I just plowed ahead. That was how I used to work. I would always get them done, but I wasn't conscientious or consistent. This allows you to have those KPIs in front of people. I think it also allows you, because for the most part, when we have to issue an action from HR, we have to give a performance improvement plan. A lot of times it's focused on KPIs and results, quantitative data versus qualitative. This is now going to give you qualitative data. And if you haven't developed cultural norms in your organization, it will allow you to develop those cultural norms and those values to see, are folks operating in concert with our values within the company? I was working with a team in Massachusetts, a team of doctors who were also accountable for delivering Medicaid and Medicare in the state of Massachusetts. And there was somebody who was a director level who would not show up to meetings. So confused by that. And he said, well, my team had it. I said, yes, but the cultural norm is you're demonstrating your leadership by going or not anointing. What do you say when deputizing somebody else to take your place for that meeting? It also allows us to look at executive presence. What is their ability to communicate hard things? Are they able to? That's something that's not going well. I can't give bad news to the sales team or the marketing team to tell them that product that we deployed and launched last year, we're not going anywhere with it anymore because it fizzled and it didn't do well. So thank you for bringing that up, Javier. Does that open up anything else for you? Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, no, I think that's great. Yeah. And to your point of our own self-assessment, but like I'm thinking even for the employee self-assessment, this can guide you as well. Cause I would do the same thing, go through calendar, go through emails over the year and try to pluck out quickly what I remember and translate it to what I was going to be measured on and then go from there. But, I think nowadays, especially with technology, with AI and things like that, I mean, like, I feel like we're in a better position to have logging what we're doing throughout the year in some way.
Absolutely. And you could put these questions for yourself and set up a Google Sheet or whatever to answer them yourself on a Friday. What went well this week? What didn't go as well as I'd like it to? What did I do to try to solve it? What resources do I need? What questions do I have to kind of plan out the following week as well? Yeah, thanks, Javier. Sylvia, did you have a question? You just came on camera, so I kind of figured you did.
I do. I do. I just have, and I know this can really vary for different organizations and, different one-on-ones, but how long would you estimate this would take for each staff member to do this one, prior
Less and
24
less
hour training?
time, less and less time, the more they get used to it. If your one-on-ones are 30 minutes, you can still get this done in 30 minutes because they've given you the information 48 hours ahead of time. You've been thoughtful about it. And you're able to come in and say, this is what we're going to be covering. And you can even
And I'm
ask them
sorry, I
ahead of
wasn't
time.
clear. How about also how long would you estimate that we should tell our managers this would take for their staff? So if someone's being asked in my company's, my organization's culture is we're working against it, but it's very detailed People don't speak in rough draft, so I can imagine this being a highly stressful assignment to give everybody to ask them to try telling their supervisor this. So I'm like, how much is there a ballpark? Should we say spend 15 minutes
20
to talk
minutes.
about this?
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes. What's going well? They don't have to give all the little nuances. Like, and you could even say, what are the top 3 things that went well this week? Or what's the number one thing that you think really went well this week? So that they're not, if you have a culture where people are very precise and details, and you want to avoid them coming up with a diatribe, right? What's the number one thing that went well this week? What's the number one thing that isn't going well as you'd like it to? What have you tried to do about that? And
That's really helpful.
yeah, I'm also wondering too if you could, because I'm trying to think about, as you're mentioning that, the nuance between the culture you're in and these questions and people not wanting to be, well, wait a minute, are you going to hold me to account? I said something wasn't going well, and then that's going to be like a hand slap. No, this is just for me to get a sense from you of what you think isn't going well. Because I think it's actually going well. I'm not even sure why you said it wasn't going well, because from our perspective, it's going great. And it's an opportunity for you to coach and mentor them where they can, I always say my job was to make people self-cleaning ovens. Do you know what I mean by that? Where they are able to police themselves, hold themselves to account, and come to me when something isn't going well, instead of waiting to be found out. And that is what happens when we think something isn't going well, we default into these our the way that we deal with authority. So for me, I believe this turns people into self-cleaning ovens. Is that helpful, Sylvia? Yeah. Very good. Victoria, did you have something? I saw you put yourself on camera.
Yes.
Perfect.
I think we fight, HR professionals sometimes fight that gotcha place.
Yep.
So these questions are wonderful and thoughtful, but how do we create? What is your perspective on creating that safe space? Because people are reluctant to be who they are sometimes, not because of that specific manager. It could be because of the culture that they're in. It could be because of a number of different things. Do you have some tips, some hacks for creating that safe space so people utilize this wonderful one-to-one for what it's really intended to do?
Yeah.
To come at it from a strengths-based approach and say, we all have areas that we can improve. Let's see, what are those things that are bothering you, and how are you approaching it? And is there anything I can do to help you achieve what you need to achieve?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I had this idea, which is, could you, let's say you have your 5 or 7 direct reports. Hopefully nobody has any more than that, because we need to talk if you do. Kidding. Bring everybody together. Do this for yourself for a couple of weeks to see what you discover about your own leadership, your own effectiveness. Bring everybody together and say, I want to introduce a new framework for our one-on-ones together. I've been using it the last couple of weeks, and it's really given me talk about what you've discovered for yourself and emphasize this is not about gotcha. Name it. I think one of the keys sometimes as HR professionals, we tiptoe around the things we know people are thinking. The more you can name it, you kind of take as a stand-up comedian, I incorporate the way I develop comedy into my keynotes, workshops, and training, where I take people to this edge and let the wind out of their sails. Because if you don't name, look, this is the point of this is not a gotcha moment. I'm not trying to get you. If you don't name that, there's that automatic energetic defensiveness. So, oh, relax. This isn't a gotcha moment. This is really an opportunity for you to train and develop yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're you. And yes, I may be your manager. I want you to be really facile at knowing what you need to succeed rather than looking outside yourself. So you're giving them agency. That's the point of this whole thing, is you're giving people the agency to review their own performance. So perhaps starting look, we're going to do a sprint with this. We're going to do a 90-day sprint, a test. Maybe this month, next couple of weeks, you fill in these questions. And then at the end of this month, guys, we're going to try this for February and March for this quarter. Here's why. Here's what I'm thinking about. Here's how we're going to deploy it. And then maybe at the end of those 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, you come back together and as a group, what did we think of that process? What did we learn? That kind of thing. I'll share with you what I learned. I'll share with you some of the things that I saw, because you're creating a culture of accountability. You're creating a culture of teamwork, of these power source relationships where they're feeding you power and you're feeding them power. I don't know. How does that sound, Victoria?
That sounds great, because that's exactly, I think you just gave us hints and perspectives of how to create context so people see what the why is. Why is this important? Why is this beneficial? Why could this be helpful to you and to me? And I love the idea of talking about how we have used it ourselves and how
Yeah.
it's impacted us.
And I think too, the other thing that just came up for me, Victoria, and this is why I love, my workshops are never me to you. It's always interactive this way, because we discover things together that I would never be able to think about on my own, which is you're putting them in charge of their performance review. How many of us, whether you do biannual or annual, forget what the heck we did over the course of a year? This is giving you an opportunity to know how you're doing all the time. And it takes the stress out of performance reviews, because all of a sudden, oh, I'm just going to go back through all these questions I answered and look to see what was going well and what I'm proud of and where I took ground and all those kinds of things. Yeah. Thanks, Victoria. Javier, did you have something else to add to that?
Oh yeah, I think Victoria made a great point about introducing it into the culture and kind of like normalizing this as you move it forward. And I would say like leaning forward even more if you have an employee or more than one employee who's not meeting expectations, like this may not get you to that place of level setting with them if there hasn't been conversations about how to improve performance yet. Like, so this may just kind of already really just bring to the surface what you already knew or what you thought you knew about why they weren't meeting goals. But I think it's a really great model.
Thank you. Thank you. We had one of the clients that I was working with had to fire somebody because she inherited this person from two other bosses who wouldn't have tough conversations. And nobody had implemented these kinds of performance reviews until she and I began to work together. And that's when we saw some of the glaring issues. And then it was a state government agency, which is a difficult place to even put somebody on a PIP, but she was able to do it and eventually let the person go. This was somebody that had been, you know how this always happens, where you have one person that everybody knows is the challenge, let's say in the organization, and you don't want to deal with somebody else doesn't want to deal with it. You don't want to deal with it. Finally, it's dealt with, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, thank you so much," because you thought you were the only one. But another situation like that where somebody left to take another job, and to a T, all this person's direct reports complained about what an awful manager they were, but nobody had said a boop or a peep about it. So it also allows us to uncover some of those pieces too, and hopefully avoid those tough situations. Yeah. So we have a few more minutes, and I love to provide whatever I can. If you have questions about these, questions about anything else that I asked, or you just want to sort through your particular situation at your job about how, or if you have other questions about your one-on-ones, even if they're going well, other questions about, sticky wickets that you've got. How can I be helpful?
I'll talk again.
Awesome, Sarah.
Okay, I just got off my one-on-one with my direct report, and uh, I found myself sort of doing exactly what you just mentioned, where you try to avoid topics. But some of them, I have sort of different, she has a different work culture background, has not, this is her first job in the United States. And I try to figure out, like, she talks a lot. If I asked how are things going, she would tell me how she needs more money and she can't pay her bills and all of this, which in the US is kind of a shock for a direct report to say to their manager in a one-on-one. And but I want to be open-minded that maybe that is not the norm for the where she had worked previously for 15 years in another country. And so I have been trying to tiptoe around because I do want to move her ahead. There's wonderful things as well. This is just an awkward piece that comes up, and whenever I get to those deeper questions, it ends up her telling me things that they're really not things I can do. I can't sit there and say, oh well, we'll give you more money now. How do you divert? I'm totally in a sticky situation here.
No, it's totally fine. I have a definition of gossip. Don't say anything to anybody that can't do something about it.
Mm.
And in the organizations that I worked for decades, and I've been a coach for 25 years, but had my own coaching firm for the last 10. But people knew me as somebody that did not tolerate gossip. So somebody, even if the verbal vomit bucket, if it happens more than once and they haven't resolved it, be like, hey, Samantha, can you come into the office with Sarah and I? We've got to talk about something. And I would bring Samantha in and say, Sarah has something to say to you. And then I would just be quiet. It is the most awkward thing ever. But it forced people to talk with one another. And then I could be able to just listen and, in a sense, play umpire, but help them understand they're saying the same thing. They're not talking past each other. With this person, has anybody done any level setting with her about, or have you done any level setting with her when she says something like that? I appreciate that. You've told me about that before. There's nothing I can actually do about that. However, I see opportunities for you to advance in the company because you're so skilled at what you do. So let's keep our eye on for these conversations, developing you and your leadership so that you can get promoted and get the additional income that you need to support your lifestyle, your family, etc. This is where those tough conversations come in and are so important. You've got to nip that in the bud. I know we all want to be nice about it, etc., but the more leeway you give somebody, the more rope they're going to take.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great advice. And the level setting, it's definitely got to be me. So I've got to.
Definitely got to be you. And you could say something like, I always love the phrase, I'm so curious. So curious why you're a jerk. I would never say that, but that stops me from saying, why are you such a jerk? You know what I mean? But I'm curious, you've brought this up a couple times. Now, there's nothing I can do about that, right? When you were working wherever she was working, was that a norm for you that you would bring that up and your manager was able to increase your pay? I'm just curious about that. Well, yeah, that's how it worked there. If I articulated that and they could give me more hours, got it. That's not the way we work here. However, what I do want to do with you as your manager is to develop you so that you can be promoted. And that would equal extra money. So between now and then, or maybe it is, do you need to enroll her in a financial literacy class? Does she need skills development that have nothing to do with the job, but you as her manager or as the company know that, companies have health and wellness plans, right? Do companies have financial literacy plans? Perhaps there's something like that to offer as well. I mean, that also assumes she's not financially literate, so you kind of have to watch that. But I think that's something else you can think about.
Yeah.
Is that helpful, Sarah?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Okay, anyone else? All right, so what I want to do is two things. One is I'm going to, this is where I want you to take out your phones. You're going to scan this QR code and put in the code one-on-one. Take you 30 seconds if you could, 2 minutes really, to give me feedback about this workshop, what you appreciated, what else you would like to see me add in, any other feedback you want to give me. It will also ask you if you know others that would benefit from having this kind of a conversation. Quite honestly, this is the kind of thing I've walked into a company and done a half-day training, or it's been part of a retreat, because nobody knows how to have effective one-on-one meetings. Nobody knows how to have tough conversations, and that's the one we're doing next week. So, and what you'll get in return, by the way, is a 5-page PDF. In that PDF, I think it's 5 pages, it might be 7, whatever it is. It's going to be uh, a sample email to send to your employees, letting them know you're implementing the strategy, the questions, and then a sample Google Doc that you can turn into a spreadsheet, et cetera, where you can start tracking things. Also, when you get that PDF that you'll get in return for providing me feedback, I always offer everyone who's ever on a live call with me a 30-minute strategy call. This is not a sales call. This is a strategy call for you. There will be a link in that document for you to schedule that. The point of that is, if there were things you didn't want to bring up in the group that you want to talk through, or I don't think this is going to work, whatever it is, help me figure out a way to implement it. That's the purpose of that strategy call, or any other thing you want to strategize around some of the people that you're training and developing and attempting to do your one-on-ones with, or the managers who are like the ones that aren't willing to do the one-on-ones, whatever you need. If on that call, I will ask the question, are you interested in having a separate sales call with me to talk about how to work together? And you get to say yes or no. Completely up to you. I just wanted to offer you a bit more time with me, should you want that in private. And then PJ, you're going to get those results automatically, which is kind of fun. And if you can't get the QR code, just put in your browser this piece, https://talk.ac/Jen Coken, and you'll get to the same spot. I'll just give people another minute, and then I'm going to take my screen off sharing and see if there's any last minute. Does anybody just raise your digital hand if you need me to leave this slide up for any more length of time? I'm looking to see. Digital hands, digital hands. Okay. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you again to PJ for having me. I hope that this opened something up for you and allowed you to see something you hadn't seen before and gave you a different perspective on the one-on-ones. Vivienne, did you want to say something because you came on camera? You're just showing me your face. I love when I see people.
Exactly. I just wanted to say thank you, and it's good to see everybody. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Good to see you too. Thank you, Vivienne. All right. Thanks, Sarah. Any other words of wisdom that anybody wants to share for the good of the whole? Or you, PJ?
Thank you.
You're welcome, Sylvia. Thank you for being here. Thanks to those of you who shared and participated, and those of you who listened without speaking. We always need people in the room who are listening acutely, and I could tell that you were. So if hearing nothing else, I'm going to give you 5 minutes back in your day to go water in, water out, as I like to say. Bio break and fill up your water jug.
Jen,
And I'll
thank you.
see you next week for those of you that are going to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I am going to send out another invite to everyone so that you'll have it for next week's session, which we hope that you'll be able to join us for. Jen, thank you again for your amazing resources. A really great way to look at one-on-ones and how we should be going about doing it and how you can look to do it for your organization, and giving that opportunity to others to certainly have that strategic conversation with you. Again, we'll definitely give you your time back. Thank you again, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your day and have a wonderful rest of the week. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.